Our gospel story this morning comes from the book of John, and it is a powerful story for this season, a story of life and death and mystery. Jesus was really good friends with Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus. And Mary and Martha and Lazarus all lived in Bethany, and Jesus had just returned to Jerusalem, which is just a couple of miles from Bethany, and he had heard the news that Lazarus had died. He had been dead for 4 days. This was the first that he heard of it, and he set out toward Bethany, which was nearby. But even before he got to the small village, Martha came from where they were, gathered with the family and with other members of the Jewish community. She came to him even before he reached the village. She was so moved and a little upset, and she said, "Jesus, Lazarus is dead. I know if you had been here, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. And even now, whatever you ask of God, God will give you." And Jesus said, "Your brother will rise again." And Martha said, "Well, I understand that in the end time, when everyone comes back, that Lazarus will too." And Jesus said, "No, I am the resurrection and the life, and those people who believe in me will not die." And Jesus said, Go to Martha, ask her to come here." And so, to Mary. And so Martha went back and got Mary and brought Mary to Jesus. And Mary, who was even more upset, threw herself at Jesus' feet. And she too said, "I think that if you had been here, this would not have happened." And she wept. And the other members of the Jewish community who had followed Mary to Jesus, they were weeping too. And Jesus wept with them. And some of the people around said, "Look how moved he is by Lazarus' death." But some others said, "Well, couldn't this person who brought sight to blind people, couldn't he have done something about this?" And Jesus said to Mary and Martha, where have you laid him?" And so they took him to the tomb. And there it was, with a big stone in front of it. And he said, "Remove the stone." And Martha said, "But Jesus, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. There could be a great stink." But Jesus said, "No, move the stone." And they pulled the stone away from the grave. And Jesus just stopped to pray, and he said, "God, hear me. Hear me. Actually, I know you hear me always. I say these words aloud, that those gathered might hear of your presence, know your presence, and know of your glory." And he took a step back from the tomb. And in a loud voice he said, "Lazarus, come out!" And I can only imagine how long it might take for someone who thought he was dead to notice that he was suddenly alive, to notice that he was in a tomb, to notice that he was wrapped up in bandages and cloths, to find his way to standing. But there, Lazarus came out of the tomb, the fabric still covering his body, a cloth over his face. And Jesus said, "Unbind him and let him go free."